The Denver Nuggets are next up. They drafted Bones Hyland at number 26. Everybody seems to like him. We'll see. They extended Aaron Gordon. This is the most recent thing they did. Basically, 4 years, 92. And it's 4 million in incentives. I suspect it's probably that's a PR, you know, framing of it as we see more and more now. The agent side always leaks the max possible number.
Yeah,
I'm
would you
kind of
like to
thinking of it
know
as,
how he gets to 92 million?
oh, I would love to because I don't know.
Every single season for each of the 4 years, $500,000 if he makes an All-Star team, $250,000 if he makes an All-NBA team, and $250,000 if he makes All Defense. I would argue All Defense is probably his best bet of those three.
Yeah, so he's really, and that's a quarter million for all defense for over the 4 years.
Yeah, so that's a million total. He's not getting if he
All
makes an
right,
All-Star game, my God, let alone a
what a
All
deal.
NBA team, which is funny that like the All NBA is a smaller bonus than the All-Star team.
Yeah, that is weird. I so anyway, I kind of think of it as 4 for 88, but maybe it's 489. Anyway, Will Barton is back. 2 years, 30 million, fully guaranteed. Jamichael Green, the first of two Greens that they kept one and brought one on. 2 years, 16.4 million. There's a player option on the second year. Jeff Green, 2 years, 9 million. Got some unlikely incentives that can bring that up to 10. Austin Rivers is back at the minimum, and Marcus Howard to a 2 year or two-way. Dan, I'm looking at your sheet. 2 year. That's 2 year because he was up last year. Notable subtractions other than Jamal Murray being hurt, which is not an off-season move. Not a lot. Not a lot. Paul Millsap would be one. Trying to make sure I didn't miss anything from my sheet. JaVale McGee is also gone, and I think that's it in terms of the bigger names. So that is Denver's offseason. Not quite as consequential as Dallas's. What are your thoughts on how the Nuggets did?
I gave them, looking at, I think the Aaron Gordon extension might change it a little bit for some people. I guess you can look at that as an overpay. He did average like 6 points per game to close out the Western Conference semifinals. I still think, given what this team could have done, there's where you're just going to let him walk in free agency, and the cap is expected to go up. And so if you look at this as like counting, like, as the cap increases, like a 20% of the cap or 22.5% of the cap, I don't really think it's that detrimental. And he didn't have a real training camp with them. And there might even be some weird motions this season if Jamal Murray comes back and he hasn't played with him before. He can be a connective tissue type on offense to me. And when you're not going to ask him to do a ton, as long as he's willing to fulfill that role, and I think if you can get Michael Porter Jr. to buy into being like your number 4 option at one point as he was coming along, you can get Aaron Gordon to play within the flow of the offense, especially with Nikola Jokic just dropping dimes to him. What he gives you on defense means so much. He was guarding point guards for them in the
Yeah,
playoffs. I'm fine with this deal. So I had them at a B plus before the extension, and I'm going to leave them there just because I like everything they did. I love Jamichael Green. The Jeff Green deal was a sneaky good signing. You lose Paul Millsap, you lose JaVale McGee, whatever to that. I actually like that they still have Zeke Naji to try out at the 5, but they can also play like just different ways now. And they didn't really lean on it. Like they had this option with Paul Millsap there, but Jeff Green and Jamichael Green could make up a nice second unit front court. And if you have Aaron Gordon on the floor in those minutes where Nikola Jokic isn't, you can actually do something with your defense there. So I thought they had just a really solid offseason, exceeded expectations relative to the lack of flexibility that they're working with. And I don't know how much of a look he's actually going to get in Denver. I'm hoping he can get some minutes while Jamal Murray's out. I really think that Bones Hyland is going to be a very useful, very impactful NBA player. I've said this on this podcast before. His contortionist finishing around the rim is a big deal, and he can take difficult, deep threes. He has to get them off a little quicker from what I've seen of him. But that's like, if you have someone who can do that, you can live with the fact that, oh, this dude isn't really going to table set a ton. And maybe that just comes with time and experience. So I thought they had just a great offseason, again, relative to how limited they were with what they could do. Before you go, I guess the one thing that could change this, or maybe it doesn't, is the Michael Porter Jr. extension. If they just max him out, though, like that's like going with the expected route, right? Like in what way could a Michael Porter Jr. extension harsh whatever grade you're about to give them?
Yeah, I'll just say I gave them a B plus too. I think we're just in lockstep on their offseason. I agree with everything you said. I think if what would you ideally want? I guess as the Nuggets is you wouldn't want to have to give the player option on the last year because you like that extra control. And I feel like with him, that's sort of where the negotiation is going to be. I don't foresee there being a negotiation of we want you to take less than the max. I just think it's going to be what concessions, if any, do need to be made in terms of like a player option. That I just otherwise I don't think he's gonna like. I think that's it. I think that's all it is. So if the Nuggets manage to get every year locked in and maybe even get some crazy like Exhibit 3 Joel Embiid like back related injury protections, partial guarantees or something, that moves it to an A. If they can retain some control, over Porter or protect themselves from potential recurrence of injury. But I don't think there's a scenario where a Porter extension would lower their grade. I think it would only has potential to go up because I think like look if you've shown you're willing to pay Gordon a reasonable rate, but sort of the high side of reasonable maybe. I think you've got to just shell out. So other than that, the only other comment I'd make is I think this feels like the offseason of a team that really understands itself because like you mentioned, Hyland I think fills a need with Murray out. And I think Will Barton, maybe people will worry about his health or whatever, but 2 for 30 for him and the shot creation that he brings and just some of the instant offense that he brings, all that matters with Murray out. And you've given yourself in both of the greens, like Jokic plays 40 minutes a night or, he never misses games, but you've got that option now. You've got sort of a more athletic, undersized look if you ever had to go with that or wanted to for some reason. So the Nuggets really seem to know who they are, and I just think it felt like a very like a unified. There's a lot of a very clear understanding of what this team needs and how it wants to operate. So B plus, and if there's a good team friendly side of that Porter extension, if one happens, move into the A range for me.
And the thing with Will Barton too, as you mentioned, is it's almost like a 1-year extension for him. His salary next year is so
Yeah,
close to the player option he turned down that you're basically just adding a year on top of that. And his salary's on a slightly declining scale. So I'm with you there. And he's so important while Jamal Murray's out. And you just hope that there's a facsimile of a full-time playmaker beyond Nikola Jokic between Barton, whatever Jamal Murray does next season, does Austin Rivers, Monte Morris, Facundo Campazzo, all that. So yeah, I really like their offseason.